Hi, this is Eli Kranzberg, and welcome to this series on Strum GS-2 by Applied Acoustic Systems. Now, this is a fantastic sounding guitar instrument. It does both acoustic and electric guitars and has several different kinds of playing modes that allows for automatic voicing and automatic strumming, or manual voicing and strumming, and even MIDI loops to trigger patterns, etc. There's a lot to cover. It's a complex plugin, sophisticated but elegant to use. And in this first video, I just want to kind of go over an overview of the interface and signal flow and make sure you get the big picture before we jump in. Now, to start with, sounds are organized into banks and presets, and we get that up here. And the different banks are for acoustic guitar or electric. And you'll see when I switch to electric, the interface changes slightly. Particularly, there's a neck and bridge switch over there, as well as different graphics. But we can switch there, and within each bank are several presets. Now, there are three different views that we work in. Play view, which is probably what we'll be spending the most time in, edit view, and then effects view. Now, there's a utility section at the top here, and this is common to all the views and includes the banks and presets and all the buttons to switch between the three views, as well as these settings over here. Now, let's look at play view. This basically controls performance parameters. There's a mode selector to see what kind of playback mode we want to work with. We're going to talk about that in a moment. There's clock, mod wheel, how we want that to work, auto strumming. There's a display for how chords are voiced on the fretboard, different voicing options, and loops that become available depending what playing mode we're in there. But that's basically play mode. Now we have edit view over here, and this contains the synthesis parameters, so we can control the pick that's being used, the individual strings. We can customize the hammer-on, mute, and palm effects, and even the body of the guitar. And then in effects view, we have an EQ section, then a compressor, two different multi-effects. In this case, it's distortion, but you can choose between a variety of them, and then tremolo, and then a reverb section. Now let's go back to play view, and you'll see the effects are represented here, and they change slightly when we're working with electric guitars. We get amplifier settings, but we'll explore those in later videos. Now let's talk about the playing modes. We have keyboard mode, guitar mode, and loop mode, and we'll explore them all in detail, but a quick little explanation. Keyboard mode basically allows for regular keyboard triggering. So what I play is what we'll hear and how it'll be voiced. And you see a representation on the keyboard here. And we get a description of the chord as it's analyzed and what frets are being played. Now in guitar mode, which is more sophisticated, it takes the notes that we play on the keyboard and it automatically voices it into guitar-based voicings. You'll see the display change here. We have this range for hitting a note on the keyboard, or notes. Right now I'm hitting a C minor chord. I'm playing C, E flat, and G, but you can see it's voicing it in this guitar mode over here. It's analyzing the chord and displaying what notes are going to be hit. And then we have another range here with strumming keys that we use to trigger different articulations. So it's very sophisticated. And in loop mode, it's basically the same thing, but instead of basing the MIDI input on the notes played on a keyboard, we have a little MIDI file player section where we can play in MIDI files. And again, it'll analyze the chords based on how a guitar player would voice it. So when we're in guitar mode, there's a strumming module component to GS2, and we use these strumming keys to trigger it. So just so you understand the signal flow, when we play in either MIDI notes on the keyboard or MIDI loops when we're in loop mode, there's a chord detection module that analyzes the chord. Then there's the voicing engine, and we use these different features over here to determine how the chord is going to be voiced. And then the sound is triggered either in keyboard mode by playing the keys or by the strumming module when we're in guitar or loop mode based on these strumming keys. And then the sound is shaped by these body and pick parameters. And finally, it's run through the multi-effects section. So let's look at a quick overview of what we've just talked about, because I want to make sure you understand this clearly. It's the architecture. Sounds are organized into banks and presets at the top of the interface, and there's three different views: play view, edit, and effects view. And this utility section at the top is consistent throughout. So in play view, we get all the performance parameters. Edit view are the synthesis parameters for shaping the sound, and effects view allows for processing the sound afterwards. So there's three playing modes: guitar, keyboard, and loop mode. Keyboard mode is regular keyboard triggering. And in guitar mode, Strum voices the chords that a guitar player plays with his left hand and then reproduces the right hand techniques with the strumming keys. And loop mode is similar, but we use MIDI files. And in guitar and loop mode, chord detection is used to analyze the notes when three or more notes are played on the keyboard, and then it'll find a voicing. It'll then display the chord and the voicing, and then the strumming module is used with the strumming keys or MIDI loops. So here's the overview of the signal flow. We get MIDI input from the keyboard or the loop player. It goes through chord detection, the voicing engine, the strumming engine, and then the sounds are shaped by the parameters for the strings and the body and the pickups, and then it's run through the effects. So the lower range of the keyboard is used for spelling out the chords, and the upper range is used to trigger the different hand techniques. And it's also mirrored 3 octaves below middle C, and I'll explain that in later videos. But here's the signal flow for the effects. We have an EQ and a compressor, and then there are 2 effects. And when we're working with the electric guitar presets, there's an amplifier. So one of the effects is pre and one is post, and then finally a reverb. See you for more in the next video, where we're going to jump in and start looking at play view and the keyboard mode.